So I got to take the intake manifold off now so I can get to the EGR cooler and pull that off. It's going to be a lot easier pulling this off with this front cover out of the way because I can actually access these bolts and I can pull this thing off. But I'm going to start with pulling these off. They're an Allen head. I don't know what size is that. 5, I guess. Yeah, I'm going to start by pulling these off. You can pull the hose off right there. I actually prefer to do it right there. Pretty sure those are T30. Yep. And then we got a sensor connection right there. Right there. Okay, I'm going to take this off. You just pull the sensor, pull the 2 bolts. They're both T30. That comes out of the way. I guess you got these vacuum lines. This one going that way. That one going underneath the intake manifold. And then I'll disconnect some of these connections, pull these out of the way, and then you do have to pull this. We got a bolt right there. So I got these connections unplugged, and then you can slide them off of there. They pop right out. And then we got 2 T30s right there. And I guess this one also pops out. Yeah, there we go. And that's it. And then you want to pull this off. It's going to get in your way if you don't. I'm going to pop this out. I'm going to pull this out. This one you got to lift up that gray tab. I always use like a pick or something, and then you can squeeze it, and then the connection comes out. I'm going to pull this connection. That one just, yeah, it comes out just like that. So I got to get these fuel components out of the way. I got to pull this out. It's a 1 1/16. I just use the closed end. I get it on there. And it pulls it off just fine. I got to pull this off. It's a 17 millimeter. And then I think it does attach or bolt somewhere, but this one just didn't have it. I guess somebody worked on this before me and didn't put that one back. Yeah, the other one's right there. I'm going to go ahead and pull all of the T30s out of here. You pretty much have to have a long one of these because some of these are in really tight spaces. I'm going to do my best to show you where they're all at. Hopefully I don't miss any. You got one there, one there. Actually, you can't really tell. So it's right there. You got one over here. You got another one over here. Yeah, you can see it. There about. And then over here it gets really tight. It gets really, really tight. Yeah, we got one right there. You can see it. Right there. We got another one. Where am I? Okay. Got another one in here. In between. You can't even see it. But it's like it's hitting that fuel line. I guess you can barely see it. It's like right underneath that fuel line. Yep. Right there. For reference, that's where we're at. And then you got some on this side. You got that one. You got that one. That one's really annoying. That one. That one. That one. And then this one is also pretty tight. You can't see it. Yeah, the fuel line and everything gets tight right here. Oh, there it is. Right there. You can see it. If you know what you're looking at, you can see it right now. So that worked. We got the intake manifold pulled off. Anybody who ever worked on one of these knows the intake manifold is a little bit of a nightmare to pull off. You just gotta wiggle it and finesse it, and then eventually it pops off. I always have to pull it this way, I find, and then it works. Now we can pull the actual EGR cooler. We got T30 bolt there, 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 Right there, you can see the flange is what they call it, EGR flange thing. That shares a bolt with the cooler, the EGR cooler. And then we got one bolt there. It's an Allen head. It's the same size as the other one. I think it was a 5 or something like that. Then we got a connection here. Then after that, this will come off. So I got the EGR cooler off. You can finally see this is the part that we're replacing. This is the part that's causing all this work right here that we're doing. At this point, I am ready to continue pulling off this front ceiling flange. Looks like we got this part. I don't know if it needs to be pulled off first, but I'm going to go ahead and pull it off first. I think it's some type of thermostat thing for the oil cooler. You can see it's got oil bleeding right out of it. This is going to be replaced with the brand new part. And then after that, we just got Torx all around the perimeter. Torx bits, probably a T30, like everything else. And then we got two. We can pull this hose clamp out once we actually pull the ceiling flange. And then we'll see if this gets in the way. I still don't know if I can. I might be able to just leave this here. I'm going to try for that. I got the front ceiling flange popped off. One thing about this, when you pull all the bolts, the gasket kind of holds it on there, plus this part holds it on there pretty tight too. When we were pulling it, we couldn't tell if we got all the bolts or not because it was stuck on there. Eventually we tugged it hard enough. And you got to be careful because you're going to crack this aluminum plate if you don't be careful. You got to pull it on one side a little bit, pull it on the other, and just slowly work it through until you can actually just pull it all the way. So here's our ceiling flange. You can see this gasket here. This part actually cracked when we pulled it off, which is not a problem. We're replacing this part anyways. One thing about this job, there are two types of gaskets. There's this type, it's just rubber, and then there's kinds that have, it's the same shape just about, but it has an aluminum backing. This obviously does not have the aluminum, it's just the rubber. This part is pretty suspect. It's flattened out. You can see it's not quite a lip like it should be, and it does feel pretty hard. It's like hard and it's flat. I got the new one here for reference. Let's see, where are we at? Okay. We got the new one right here. You can see it just has a lot bigger of a lip. The lip extends beyond the plastic more. There's the old one. It'll zoom in. There's the old one. Here's the new one. Plus this new one, the O-ring is not hard. So I had 22 screws on that front ceiling flange. You can see that bottom sealer there was not sealing at all. I guess the little O-ring thing, whatever you call this, that was not sealing at all. We were dumping oil right out of it, just making a big mess. Plus we got some dried coolant right here that was leaking down. See all that? You got dried coolant everywhere. Dried coolant in there. And then if you look at over here, you got dried fluid. I don't know what exactly that is. And then just dried fluid, oil and coolant. It was about time for that front seal to be replaced. Alright, at this point we just got to get the ceiling flange prepped and ready to go back in. We're going to need to replace this part with the proper torque specs and torque sequence on that. We're going to have to clean all this off. We got some electronics here. We got to be careful not to damage that. We got to clean this surface without getting any dirt into that engine. And we got to replace this front main seal. I'm going to start by taking this part off and just cleaning the ceiling flange. So the way I'm cleaning this, I got one of these scraper things from Harbor Freight. This is plastic, so it's not going to damage nothing. And I'm just spraying it with the hose really lightly. And I'm being careful not to get this sensor, or whatever that is, maybe a solenoid. And I'm just scrubbing it clean while sprinkling a little bit of water on it, and it's cleaning it up just fine. I got the sealing flange probably about as clean as I'm gonna get it. What I did here is I scraped it clean with this plastic wire brush and got some dish soap right there. Did the best that I could, and then I swapped over to this. It's like a copper brush. And I was just really careful not to damage the actual sealing surfaces. This part's a little bit unfortunate as far as cleaning goes because there's so much gasket surface. You really have to get a whole lot of it clean and precise, but this thing's just about done. So at this point I'm just gonna pop out this front main seal. There's a specialty tool that you can buy to pop these out, but you do it when the sealing flange is on the engine. That tool's a little bit expensive, so I didn't buy it because I don't think I'm gonna need it. I believe if you just pull the whole flange off and then pop this out before sticking this back on the engine, you should be just fine if you only buy the installation tool, which is what I did. I'm still in the process of cleaning this up. You can see we got this a lot cleaner. I'm gonna have to get my vacuum and actually suck out this fluid. I tried wiping it with a towel and it just comes right back, so I'm gonna have to suck it up with my vacuum so that this doesn't just drench the new gaskets and cause a leak. These threads I'm gonna have to blow out with my air chuck just to get these threads ready to stick a bolt in there. If you just thread a bolt in there with that fluid, it'll actually crack the metal. You can break your engine doing that, and so that's one thing you gotta watch out for. This took a long time, but this is ready to be put back together. The parts are all clean, the gasket surfaces are clean. I blew the threads out with my air compressor, my air chuck. You can see they're not full of oil anymore. I'm not gonna crack my aluminum when I tighten the bolts down. Yeah, you can see that everything's clean. And then, this part's obviously clean. I was able to pop out my O-ring pretty easily. I'll wipe that down. I haven't done that yet. And then I'll put that part on. I don't even know what this part is called. Just for completeness of this job for this video, if you was going to replace this, you would just pull these out. They're T30s. Pretty much everything's T30. You got bolts all along it. You pop this one out. That gives you access to this area, to that, what do they call that? A coolant bypass valve or something like that. You can access that once the cooler's out of the way. You can get the sealing flange. You're just going to see one bolt here because that bolt that's missing was from the EGR cooler. These pretty much always snap when you pull these off, and they're old and brittle. This part's brand new, and so it did not snap on me. And then you got the adapter plate underneath the oil cooler. That's T30 as well. Pull those out. You pop off all those parts, and then almost all the time you can reuse these aluminums. You could just need to get the new gaskets, just clean everything spotless, and then the torque specs for pretty much everything is 9 Newton meters. That's going to be the torque spec for these as well. Just do a crisscrossy pattern for these. It's not that big a deal. If you really wanted to, you can look at the repair manual and see the exact torquing sequence, but this job in particular doesn't matter so much. And this, and yeah, you also got the bypass valve is going to be the same torque spec, 9 Newton meters. Some people are skeptical and they do 10 Newton meters. I don't know, you can do whatever you want on that. There are really good videos on the top portion of this job, although it is unfortunate that they don't mention that you're probably going to also need to get this part too. And in order to get this part, you got to rip up everything up top as well, so you might as well do it at the same time. So, I don't know, it's kind of unfortunate.